President Obama is normalizing relationships, our U.S. relationships with Cuba as we speak, and has not yet indicted George Bush or Dick Cheney for torture, even though Dick Cheney went on national television and bragged about it. So what's with that? Brian Fisher, with the host of AFR Radio, the American Families Radio show, AFR Talk, Director of Issues Analysis for Government and Public Policy at the American Family Association, AFA.net is their website, is on the line with us. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Tom.
So I was a little surprised, Brian, when I read this, Jesus would support the use of torture, and that you said, and I quote, liberals would drag the Bible's heroes before the courts at Nuremberg and charge them with crimes against humanity. I don't understand how Dick Cheney could be a hero of the Bible, and I don't. And when I ask myself the question, who would Jesus torture? The answer comes back pretty clearly, no one. I remember him stopping Peter after Peter cut off the ear of the soldier in Gethsemane just before the crucifixion.
Well, the enhanced interrogation techniques are not torture.
Oh, come on. Don't try and peddle that nonsense, Brian.
They're perfectly legal.
Nobody in the world is buying that.
Tom,
Nobody
if you don't
the
like
world.
the law, contact your congressman and change the law. They're perfectly legal.
No, they're not. These are crimes against humanity. These are crimes. Putting somebody in a cell, pouring water on them, turning down the temperature, and letting them die is a crime.
If you were to do that in a time of peace, you would be right. In a time of war, you would be wrong.
No, I'm sorry. We executed Japanese soldiers. We executed them after World War II for waterboarding our soldiers. We called it a war crime. It was a war crime. That was in the 1950s. We executed Filipino soldiers in 1904. In 1901 for waterboarding our American soldiers in 1899 during the Spanish-American War. We have always defined these things as crimes. But that, Brian, we can have this he said, she said all day long. Who would Jesus torture in your world?
Enhanced interrogation techniques are not torture.
So who would Jesus rectally feed?
Enhanced interrogation techniques, Tom, are not torture. If you
right, I didn't use the word torture. Who would Jesus rectally feed?
Enhanced interrogation techniques are not torture. And
I
Tom,
didn't use the word torture, Brian. Who would Jesus rectally feed?
The Bible permits things in a time of war that it does not permit in a time of peace.
So who would Jesus rectally feed?
Enhanced interrogation techniques are not torture.
This is a technique that John Yoo and Jay Bybee say is legal. I'm not suggesting, well, I am suggesting it's torture, but I'm not defining it as such. You're responding to a question I didn't ask. The question I did ask is, who would Jesus rectally feed? Who is it that you think Jesus would endorse using what you call enhanced interrogation techniques? And also the Nazis called them enhanced interrogation techniques. I find that very interesting.
Well, Nancy Pelosi and Jay Rockefeller reviewed extensively every single one of these enhanced interrogation techniques and had no problem with them. I stand with Nancy Pelosi and Jay Rockefeller against you on this one, Tom.
So who would Jesus rectally feed? Who would Jesus waterboard, Brian?
3 of the last 4 attorney generals have signed off on these enhanced interrogation techniques and said that they
You're not going to answer the question.
In a time of war. No, I'm answering your question. This is an enhanced.
You're saying Jesus would waterboard or rectally feed or allow to freeze to death in a prison cell anyone who isn't on the side of the United States?
Well, Tom, the Bible says when Jesus comes back, he's going to come back bearing a sword with a robe dipped in blood.
So you have chosen, Brian, to make your version of Christianity the bloody version of Christianity, the Crusades. Do I have that right?
When Jesus returns, Tom, he will come back with a sword and a robe dipped in blood. Maybe your view of Jesus is what needs to be adjusted here.
Could be. Could be that I'm wrong, but I always thought that Jesus was the guy that loved us and that said, treat your neighbor as yourself, and that that was the second most important commandment, the first being to love God, and who said to Peter, don't cut off any more ears. It's just apparently you and I, two people who call themselves Christians, worship completely different deities.
Well, Tom, you might feel differently about enhanced interrogation techniques, which are perfectly legal, if it was your wife's life that was at stake.
If my wife was if my wife had converted to Islam and had been snatched by Dick Cheney and was being told that my son was going to have his, well, in fact, not even being told, this actually happened, my son's testicles were being crushed in front of her, I'd be pretty horrified. I don't think Jesus would sign off on that, Brian.
Well, again, the CIA, last 5 CIA directors all say that these approaches are not only legal, but they are effective. Christianity supports the rule of law. These are legal. Christianity supports what is effective. According to CIA directors, these have
You
all
are
been
sounding
effective.
so much like Pastor Mueller.
These have been effective in producing information that have saved American lives.
No, actually, that's not true. They put American lives at risk. We ran all over we did several operations looking and putting American soldiers at risk. In fact, some may have even died. They're all classified, so we don't know. But we don't know that they didn't die because the CIA has not said that they didn't die. Who went off on wild goose chases because torture produces what the interrogators want to hear, not what the truth is.
President Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, says they produced effective and useful information. So I stand with John Brennan, Obama's CIA director. He and I stand together against you on this one, Tom.
Okay, so you're taking the position that Pastor Mueller, the official head of the German Protestant Church in 1942, was taking. That Hitler's people signed off on it. They said it was legal, therefore it's legal.
Obama's CIA director said this produced information
right. So the government
that saves lives. And
right.
Tom, that's the second of the greatest commandments, is to love your neighbor as yourself. This information has saved American lives. That's the Christian thing to do.
So how many people would Jesus torture to save one life?
Enhanced interrogation techniques are not torture.
How many people would Jesus waterboard to save one life?
Waterboarding is not illegal.
I know. How many people would Jesus waterboard in order to save one life?
Waterboarding produced information that saved American lives. That's what Jesus came to do. Jesus came to save life, Tom. And that's what waterboarding does. It produces information that saves American lives. That's consistent with the second of the greatest commandments that Jesus
Brian, I just have to say my truth here on this, and I don't usually speak as bluntly as I am to you right now, but I really pity you. This is the most pathetic presentation I have ever heard by anybody who pretends to be a Christian in my life. I really and truly pity you. I pray for you. I hope that you someday find peace and love in the religion that you subscribe to. And I think it's a tragedy that you have turned Christianity into this bloodthirsty, torture-endorsing, bizarre. I'm just horrified, Brian. I'm genuinely, as one human being to another, I am genuinely horrified.
Christianity supports the rule of law. These enhanced interrogation techniques are legal and they have saved lives, and that's a Christian thing to do.
No, it's not. It's the brutal thing to do. Brian, you're endorsing brutality.
Enhanced interrogation techniques produce useful information that have saved lives. That's the Christian thing to do.
You're endorsing brutality the way that somebody in some sort of repressive regime does with repeating bumper stickers.
Well, either Nancy Pelosi and Jay Rockefeller and John Brennan are right that these things are perfectly legal, or they're not. If you think they're illegal, Tom, then you need to change the law. Go to work, contact your congressman, and change the law and make these things illegal. Right now, they're legal, and they save lives, and they produce information that saves American lives. That's the Christian thing to do.
I am so sorry to hear this. Brian Fisher, AFA.net is the website. Thanks for dropping by, Brian.
Anytime.